Let's Talk Sex on All Music Radio Podcasting. Check us out on the apispreakercomepisode46924411, the Let's Talk Sex series, and we're going to talk about these comedians talk about sex. We'll give you a sample. Here we go.
I was not like a good husband. I was fucked up. You know, I was addicted to porn. I know, $1 billion industry, just me, right? I was addicted to porn, I was fit.
All right, check out the rest of it on All Music Radio Podcasting, Michael Fortin at Spreaker.com, and you catch us on all other major platforms for podcasts from All Music Radio Podcasting. Check us out. Thank you. Welcome to All Music Radio Podcasting. Your host, Mike Fortune, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Another episode under Racism, White Privilege in America. We're going to talk about the truth about critical race theory, what it really is, and obviously what their Republicans are using to try to say what it really is, and to some extent, which is slightly different than what the real deal is when it comes to critical race theory, the truth about it. On All Music Radio Podcasting, your host, Mike Fortune, coming to you live from Washington, D.C.
The station for the lost but loved, for the free and forgiven. Playing music that encourages you to live by faith and not by fear. All Music Radio.
And All Music Radio Podcasting is more than music, baby. It's information. Items that impact our lives on a daily basis. All right. We're going to bring that information to you right now. Here we go.
So Republicans are fanning the flames of a new culture war, claiming the teaching of critical race theory is a threat to our kids and to community relations. But this isn't just some abstract argument. They're actually pushing through legislation in state after state as we speak. Legislation aimed at making sure it can't be talked about in schools, which isn't just dumb because critical race theory isn't taught in schools to begin with. It's taught to law students in university. But it's also a complete violation of the First Amendment from a party that claims to be all about free speech. Joining me now is Kimberly Crenshaw, Executive Director with the African American Policy Forum. She's also a law professor at Columbia and UCLA, host of the podcast Intersectionality Matters, and she's the one who coined the phrase intersectionality and also co-founded critical race theory. Kimberly, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Your African American Policy Forum is campaigning against these Republican censorship campaigns. So I want to start by asking you to please explain what critical race theory actually is, because Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene clearly don't have a clue. You do. You helped found it. Define it for our viewers, please, in the simplest of terms.
Well, the simplest of terms, and thanks for the opportunity. Critical race theory is the study of law and how it has been part of the infrastructure from slavery to emancipation to segregation to today, upon which racial inequalities have been based. It's basically an effort to think about, we have had commitments to equality since the 14th Amendment, yet our reach has not realized itself in real equality. So we're basically just asking questions and looking at the way that law has been a conduit for racial inequality, and therefore what we need to do about law in order to bring us closer to the dreams that we have as a society. But let me be clear. This is not about critical race theory. Ted Cruz knows what critical race theory is and isn't. The people who are trying to create this hysteria around critical race theory know what critical race theory is or isn't. What this is backlash politics, coming precisely at a moment where finally racial justice has become a majoritarian interest on the part of Americans from all races and all classes. So this is a way of pushing back against that without saying that we're for racism. Yes. They can say we're against critical race theory.
The antioxidant goodness in every bottle.
You are a blessing today, and be someone else's blessing too. Playing music that encourages you to live by faith and not by fear. All Music Radio.
Yes, well said. And you mentioned Ted Cruz, like you, an alumnus of Harvard Law School. He compared critical race theory to the KKK. What is your response to that, to Senator Cruz on that specific comparison?
Well, it would be laughable if it weren't so dangerous and if it weren't so familiar.
Yes.
This is a mob mentality trying to Willie Hortonize racial justice. And we've seen it before. We saw it right after the end of the Civil War, when the idea that racial equality was anti-white racism was articulated by the President of the United States, President Johnson, who vetoed civil rights, saying that it was reverse discrimination. It took away from white people and gave to black people. But that wasn't the last time we saw it. We saw it during the civil rights movement, when many white people said, equality, being forced to serve you, violates my civil rights. So the idea that anti-racism is anti-white is a tried and true playbook move. It used to be part of the neo-nationalist right. It's now moved to the center of the Republican Party on the heels of this so-called hysteria around critical race theory.
And hysteria, indeed, it is. You've written nearly a dozen books on race issues, including one literally called Critical Race Theory. I want to put it in the mail to Ted Cruz's office. There's new polling out this week from The Economist, which found only 26% of Americans say they've heard a lot about critical race theory, with an additional 38% saying they've heard a little. Of those a little, over half say they have a good idea of what critical race theory is, or they think they do, and the majority view it unfavorably. If you take a look at the number of mentions the term critical race theory is getting over on Fox News, it's gone through the roof in recent months. How much does that worry you? How much does that tell you that this country is not in a good place, especially on the right?
Yeah. I used to wonder a lot about how during the end of Reconstruction, people of color and people of goodwill understood what was happening. Did they know that African Americans were going to be completely disenfranchised and not be able to vote for 7 decades? Were they aware that violence was going to take hold in capitals throughout the South, that there were going to be coups? Did the media participate in it? Were they believing some of the lies or failing to ask the questions, failing to consider the source? And this moment makes me get a sense of what it must have been like. Lies being told, people believing, and people of goodwill being confused and not knowing what to do or what to make of it. See, what they need is for those who are for democracy to just be confused about it, and then they win. So the point that we have to be about right now is saying, A, what critical race theory is, but more importantly, this is about all of racial justice. If you marched last year after George Floyd, if you have had a diversity training and suddenly you understand how you could do better in your workforce, then you are on our side on this, and you should not allow yourself to be taken to some hysterical set of beliefs about this big bad thing that you've never heard of until the last month.
Indeed. And when I look at this current frenzy, Kimberly, on the right over critical race theory in our schools, it's coming for us. It reminds me as a Muslim of the frenzy over Sharia law, creeping Sharia back after 9/11, when you had states like Oklahoma amending their constitution to ban Sharia, even though there are hardly any Muslims in Oklahoma. They may say it's not racist to be opposed to Sharia law or to be opposed to critical race theory, but then the same people end up behaving in a pretty obviously racist way, banning things that don't actually need banning, and that's the dog whistle.
Well, it's not a dog whistle anymore. It's a bullhorn. They have shaken the facade of a dog whistle. But let's understand why it works. It works because scapegoating has always worked to help people cover up their misdeeds and their crimes. Let's not forget, this is the party that has put democracy on life support. And now, while they have a pillow over its head, they're saying, look, critical race theory over there. This has been a tactic. It was used by Charles Stewart in Boston, who killed his own family and pointed to a black man, Susan Smith, who pointed to a black man who killed her own daughter. These are people who are killing democracy, and they know that they can distract people from that fact by pointing at black people, pointing at racial justice, pointing at ideas that they're uncomfortable with. We need to learn a lesson from that past and not let them get away with it again. It's up to us. We determine whether this is going to be effective or not.
We do indeed. Kimberly Crenshaw, an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your insights and your analysis. I hope more people will listen.
All right, you got what it is. It roots back to the law that they're making. I mean, you know, we shouldn't have to wait. We shouldn't have to suffer civil rights bills being, revisited every 10 years. Why? Why is that so? If you look at racism in America, what is it based on? It's based on laws. On All Music Radio Podcasts, that's where we see it. And baby, we sticking by it. You like to listen to our radio station, go to www.allmusicradio.org, hit the listen button 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can catch our podcasts on all major podcast platforms. We thank you for listening. Be a hero, not a zero, baby. Wear your mask. Get the vaccine. Save you and somebody else. Have a great day from All Music Radio, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Your host, Mike Fortune. Love, peace, joy, and happiness from All Music Radio Podcasting. Let's talk sex on All Music Radio Podcasting. Check us out on the apispreakercomepisode46924411, the Let's Talk Sex series, and we're going to talk about these comedians talk about sex. We'll give you a sample. Here we go.
I was not like a good husband. I was fucked up. You know, I was addicted to porn. I know, $1 billion industry, just me, right? I was addicted to porn, I was big.
All right, check out the rest of it on All Music Radio Podcasting. Michael Fortune at Spreaker.com, and you catch us on all other major platforms for podcasts from All Music Radio Podcasting. Check us out. Thank you.